Hello, language arts class. This is Mr. Spake back with chapter 20 of the Unteachables. So, chapter 19, we got a little more background about how the class is kind of bonding with Jake Terranova and the staff at Terranova Motors. Parker is really excelling because obviously he knows a lot about cars. He kind of compares like how well he does with cars with how not well he does it in reading and things involved with school. Um, Chapter 20 is going to be the first chapter, I believe, that's from the perspective of Jake Terranova. So even though he seems kind of on the surface to really be nice and pleasant, helping the kids out, I just can't shake the feeling that I don't quite trust him. He seems just kind of slimy to me. I don't know if he's got like a ulterior motive, like a hidden motive that he wants something and is not sure what that is yet. But that's just kind of my prediction, just based on the information that I've been given so far in the book. You guys might have a different opinion, so you can comment on Classroom or let us know the next time we have our video meeting what you guys think. But this is Mr. Spath here at the beginning of chapter 20, making the inference that something is not quite right, or at least not quite what it seems about Jake Terranova. As I cruise along River Street with the top down, the red brick of Greenwich Middle School heaves into view. That place used to be a bad memory. I was never much of a student, but middle school was a really tough time. I was lucky to get away with a suspension over the cheating thing. If my dad hadn't belonged to the same college fraternity as a couple of school board members, I probably would have been expelled. It was that close. Now, though, Greenwich Middle School means Emma. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Just the thought that she's somewhere inside the building puts a smile on my face. The smile disappears when I recognize the figure standing at the entrance of the driveway, glancing impatiently at his watch. Mr. Kermit, my old teacher. The man who has every reason to drink from the haterade where I'm concerned. Back in 7th grade, I was so happy not to be expelled that there wasn't another thought in my head. It never crossed my mind that the episode might cause problems for my teacher. Why would it? Mr. Kermit was completely innocent. Who knew that better than the guy who was completely guilty? But that's only the half of it. According to Emma, Mr. Kermit's life crashed after that. His reputation was shot. His engagement to Emma's mom fell apart. He got totally burnt out professionally. Honestly, I had no clue. Until Emma showed me the article about the Vuvuzelas. The fact that the scandal still sticks to Mr. Kermit after all these years is nuts. Not that I ever had the power to change anything. I was a middle school kid in big trouble. I followed my parents' instructions to the letter. Basically, shut up and keep your nose clean. Now that I know the extent of it, I'd do anything to make things right. The problem is it's too late. Sure, Mr. Kermit is letting me help with his class of Unteachables, and I'm getting along great with the kids. But as far the teacher himself, no dice. I checked the clock on my Porsche's high-tech dashboard. It's only 2 p.m. Why isn't Mr. Kermit in school? I pull alongside him and wave. Mr. Kermit scowls at me with what Mateo calls the Squidward Grinch face. That kid's pretty weird, but he's usually spot on. He's nicknamed me Han Solo because both of us are lovable scoundrels. Maybe I walked away from the cheating scandal with a slap on the wrist, but lately it's come back to haunt me in all sorts of ways. Everything okay, Mr. Kermit? I ask. My taxi is late. Right. His car is in the shop. I volunteered to fix it, no charge, but he wasn't having any of that. To say he's stubborn as a mule is an insult to mules. Hop in, I invite. I'll give you a ride wherever you need to go. No thanks, he replies formally. I've been waiting 40 minutes for this taxi. It'll be here any second. It's not coming, I persist. Did you try Uber? He looks blank. I remember that Mr. Kermit has a flip phone that's probably as old as his car. There are smartphones and dumb phones. His is a rock. I unlock the passenger door. Mr. Kermit, please, let me give you a lift. When he reluctantly gets in and announces his destination, I nearly choke. He's going to pick up his car from Kingston's Auto Works. Are you serious? You took your car 15 miles out of town just to avoid my offer to fix it for free? The response is a heavy dose of the Squidward Grinch face. I don't want to owe you anything. You wouldn't owe me anything, I'm practically whining. I would have been happy to do it. He's sarcastic. Well, so long as you're happy. That's not what I mean, and you know it. I enjoy doing favors for friends. Mr. Kermit doesn't like that, so I adjust my words. For people I know. You used to be my teacher. I remember. This is it. My chance to clear the air and apologize. But as soon as the thought pops into my head, I know he won't let me. Better to shut up about it. Maybe, as the two of us spend more time together, I'll get another chance. If maybe the moon will fall out of the sky. When the Porsche reaches Kingston's Auto Works, Mr. Kermit takes out his wallet and tries to pay me for the gas. When I won't accept it, he stuffs a $20 bill into the glove compartment and gets out, not bothering to say thank you. I get out too, and receive a generous helping of Squidward Grinch face. I can handle it from here, he assures me. I'm going in with you, I insist. I don't want you to get ripped off. These guys are all crooks. Including you, Mr. Kermit inquires innocently. I run a totally honest shop, but still, I feel my cheeks flush. An old clunker like yours, the parts probably have to come from the third world. Who knows what they'll try to charge you for them? It must make an impression because Mr. Kermit actually allows me to follow him inside. The place is a dump. You could probably catch plague just standing there breathing the air. The mechanic behind the counter instantly recognizes me. Hey, you're Jake Terranova. What are you doing here? My very good friend is picking up his car, I reply pointedly. I want to make sure he gets a fair deal. We barely know each other, Mr. Kermit sets the record straight. The mechanic picks up a clipboard. Which car? The Cocoa Nerd, the teacher tells him. The what? Mr. Kermit flushes. It's a Chrysler Concorde, 1992. One of my students calls it that. He's different. I snap my fingers. Parker, right? What's up with that kid? He's got a lot of mechanical ability, but ask him to read the name off a part and it comes out pure gobbledygook. It's not gobbledygook, he says, insulted on Parker's behalf. The boy has a perception problem. He sees all the letters, but his mind rearranges them. Concord de Coco Nerd. Like an anagram, the mechanic butts in. You should meet my boss. He's an anagram maniac. You look at a word, and to you it's just a jumble, but he can pick it out in a heartbeat. Poor Parker. The kid's got real potential, but how's he ever going to pass an engineering exam if he can't read the questions? All right, where's the car? Car's not ready, the mechanic tells us. There's a part coming from the Bahamas, and it's held up in customs. Instead of getting mad, Mr. Kermit acts like he's in a completely different world. Anagrams, he repeats slowly. He grabs my arm. Let's go. You have to stick up for yourself, I say sternly. I turn to the mechanic. Is this what you call service? If I ran my shop this way, I'd be out of business in a week. How's the part coming from the Bahamas? By manatee? It doesn't matter, Mr. Kermit insists. Take me to the bookstore. The bookstore? You don't need books, you need wheels. Back in the Porsche, he explains what all this is about. Parker's mind turns text into anagrams. Yeah, so? So anagrams are something you can get good at, like any other puzzle. I stare at him. Solving anagrams can teach you to read? Mr. Kermit shakes his head. Of course not. Parker needs a reading specialist. If I was half a teacher, I would have gotten him one weeks ago. I'm confused. So where do the anagrams fit in? The kid's reading has been a disaster for so long that he looks at it like it's magic, something he'll never be able to master. But solving anagrams will show him it can be done. So when I get him the help he needs, he'll believe it can work. Can you get him the help he needs? I ask. The district has a reading specialist, he explains. Nobody sends them to SCSA because they considered my students a lost cause. That ends now, he glares at me. The bookstore. I step on the gas, and the Porsche surges forward. It's amazing how Mr. Kermit's whole face changes when he's talking about the kids in his class. He becomes a totally different person, younger, more alive. He's a teacher I remember from all those years ago. At the bookstore, he's a whirlwind, stacking up an armload of anagram puzzle books tall enough for him to hold in place with his chin. By this time, school is out, so he demands to be taken to Parker's house. Can't you just wait to see him tomorrow morning? I want to strike while the iron is hot. The Elias family lives just outside the Greenwich city limits on a small farm that was designed to keep sport cars out. The long driveway is really just a pair of ruts worn into the unpaved ground by vehicles much higher and wider than the Porsche. I can actually feel the weeds brushing the low undercarriage as we jounce along. Eventually, we come to a low wood frame home next to a shed amid fields of tall corn. No sign of life in the house. I cut the engine. Should I honk? Let's give it a while, Mr. Kermit decides. After about 15 minutes, Parker comes roaring up the drive, his famous grandmother in the passenger seat of the pickup. I know a moment of agony as the kid pulls far too close behind the parked convertible. Parker is pretty bewildered to see his teacher rushing across the front lawn, toting a pile of books he can barely see over. The grandmother spies me standing by my car. I know you, she calls. You're jumping Jake Terranova. That's right, ma'am. Pleased to meet you. She beams. I see you on television. You'll jump through hoops to provide fast relief from painful athlete's foot fungus. That's not me, I tell her. I get you a great deal on a new or used vehicle. She looks at me like I'm feeble-minded. Why would I need that? I've got my grandson to drive me around. Mr. Kermit is having an animated conversation with Parker, holding up anagram books and talking a blue streak. They're well into it when a small tractor chugs out of the field, and an older, taller version of Parker hops off and joins the group. Parker's dad is surprised that a teacher would make house calls, but as Mr. Kermit explains his plan, the man looks impressed and smiles with appreciation. Contrast isn't lost on me. Mr. Elias's gratitude for a teacher who's willing to move heaven and earth to help a student versus my folks all those years ago. They rescued their son, and I'm thankful, but in the process, they hung the teacher out to dry. Mr. Kermit deserved better. I hope someday I'll get the chance to make it up to him.